Okay, well, hello, everyone, and happy Monday to you. Today is December the 9th, 2013. I want to welcome you to Les Brown's Monday Night Motivation with world-renowned motivational speaker, speech coach, and best-selling author, Les Brown. For those of you that have joined us before, you know that this is your place for motivation and inspiration. I am Anita Hicks, your host, motivational speaker, life coach, and business trainer. I want to thank you for joining us each and every week, for joining in on Les Brown's Monday Night Motivation. Thank you so much for investing in yourself. And after the call, you get an opportunity to learn how you can stay connected with Les Brown and his platinum speakers throughout the week. But for now, we are going to hear from the man himself. Mr. Brown, how are you? Les, would you please unmute your phone? Because I know you're there. Les Brown.
I just want to make you sweat a little bit. I'm here.
You can't make me sweat. You can't make me sweat. You can't do it. Les Brown, you a bad boy.
You know I'm a bad boy. You know I can't help it.
Les, you are something else. Hey, so Les, I wanted to ask you a question. I know that this week we all heard about Nelson Mandela, and I really have been taking all day to kind of reflect on that, because for me, I was on the road when I heard about it. I was training, and I didn't really have time to really sit back and think about it. But one of the things that really inspired me most when I heard someone do an interview, the gentleman that's playing him in the movie, one of the things that Nelson Mandela said to him, that he was not sick. He was just old. He was still on the journey. He was still continuing to fight, even to the end, at 95 years old. So I thought that was very, very powerful, because he didn't give up the fight. He continued on. So I know that you have some thoughts about that. I read what you said on Facebook. So, I'm looking forward to just hearing what you have to say.
Well, thank you so much. He was a person who had a sense of destiny. He was not a perfect man, but he wanted to make a difference in life. He wanted his life to mean something. And I think when I look at the work that you are doing and Stacy is doing and just the people that's on this call now, I think there's certain people in life who feel that there's a calling on them. And Nelson Mandela had that calling. And I believe that there's a calling in all of our lives. I believe that all of us have the potential to listen to that still small voice within ourselves when we say, I can do more. And when I was in Johannesburg, South Africa, I had a chance to go to the house where he and Winnie Mandela and his children lived, and I saw where the policeman shot in the house. They're still as if it took place yesterday. I saw a small cell, that just limited space, where he was held for 26 years, and you had to wonder, how could someone with nothing but a cup and a little mat on the floor, how could they maintain their sanity? I saw the pictures of kids and adults who were killed because they wanted to learn their own history. I saw the pictures of men and women who were taken and they vanished. They were tortured and beaten to death because they wanted a quality education. When I did the training in South Africa, one of the things that really startled me, a man around 46 asked me, he said, how do you dream? How do you dream? And because under apartheid 20 years ago, that was not an option. You didn't have, if you're a black person or a colored person or you're from India, you didn't have the option of becoming a doctor or a lawyer or choosing a profession or a career. That was not an option for you. We're talking about just 20 years ago. But they went through a process where they were denied a quality education. They went through a process just as we did in this country under segregation, where they were limited in terms of having access to the kind of life that they wanted. So they could not dream. Dreaming was not an option. So we had to take them through a process to teach them how to dream, and to see the level of energy and commitment and the hunger for people who want to learn. There's no question the work that we're going to go and do back there. I tell you, I could live in South Africa right now, and the reason is it is so exciting to work with the willing, to work with people who are willing to be coached, to work with people who have a thirst for knowledge and information, to work with people who are willing to do whatever is required in order to make their lives better. And I want to talk about Nelson Mandela in you, because I believe that Dr. King was right. He said there should be something in life that you're willing to die for, something in life that you're willing to sacrifice for, something in life that you're willing to pour yourself into. And I want you to think about your life and think about your goals and think about your dreams, because I think the highest honor that we can play for the Nelson Mandelas, for the Paul Robinsons, for the Malcolm X's, for the Dr. Martin Luther Kings, I think the highest tribute that we can pay is to recognize all that they have done and then ask ourselves the question, what are we going to do? What kind of mark are we going to make? I was reading the front page of the Sunday newspaper in Orlando, and in that there was an article on the front page where a husband, a wife, and a daughter were found dead in the garage. And the article went on to say they had been dead for 3 weeks. And the question was asked in the article, how can someone be missing for 3 weeks and no one notices until there was a foul odor coming out of the house? And I submit to you that that's the majority of people, that the majority of people could be dead, but because their lives are so inconsequential, because their lives had such little impact, because their lives are just focused on survival, because their lives are so small, and they did not discover the truth of who they were and what they were able to do with their lives, that they will not be missed. But when a Nelson Mandela takes his last breath, everyone knows, because of the impact of his life went far beyond apartheid, because of the impact and the example of his life, of his grace, of his courage, of his love, of his passion to be free, of his fight and the sacrifice that he made for his family, that it inspired people around the world. And so as you look at yourself and look into the future, here's what I can say, that we all know that at some time we're going to leave here. And one of the things that's important, and I heard Frank Sinatra say this, live each day as if it were your last, because one day it will be. When I heard him say that, at that time, Gladys, Nutty, and I were married, and we were in this club and had a chance to meet him, and I overheard him say that in a conversation. Live each day as if it were your last, because one day it will be. And as we look at ourselves and we celebrate this man and his life and the example that he had every reason to be angry and bitter toward his captives. Somebody said that what happens to you in life really doesn't matter. It's how you choose to deal with it. That when things happen to you, they can make you bitter or they can make you better. And here's the man who had the grace and magnanimous character to look at his captors, a man who was humiliated, who was imprisoned, a man and his comrades who were killed and tortured, that was able to say, I forgive you. I forgive you. And as you look at your life and look at where you are, what is it and who is it in your life you need to forgive? Because we've all had some injustices to take place in our lives, some injustices. We've all had some people who've wronged us. We've all had people who've hurt us. We've all had people who have done things to us and said, how could they do that? After all that I've done for you, I remember a friend of mine, she was talking to her daughter. She said, after all the things I did for you and your brothers and sisters and all the sacrifices that I made when your father left, I stayed here. I didn't desert you, and I worked from sun up until sundown. How could you leave me here and not help me me at this stage of my life when I need your help. And her daughter looked at her and said, I didn't ask you to help me. I didn't ask you to give birth to me. See, it's amazing how some people think and how they see things. And as you look at yourself and look at your goals and dreams, it's very important to realize there's more in you than you are now expressing. It's very important to realize that you were chosen, that there's a calling on your life, that you have the ability, you have the power, you have within you the capacity to do more than you can ever begin to imagine. Don't define yourself by what you don't have, or because you've lost your home, or you've lost your job, or you don't have two pennies to rub together. No, that's not a true definition of who you are. I remember going through some tough times in Detroit, sleeping in my office in the Penobscot building on the 21st floor, and hiding in the closet when the janitorial staff came to clean, or bathing in the sink down the hall, or sleeping in my car when I fell on tough times in pursuit of my dream. And I can tell you that what I had to do was to hold the vision of what I wanted to create. I talked to Anthony today and Jim, his wife, and a guy who said, I've gone through some tough times, but my goal now is to make a difference in people's lives. He's turning those lemons into lemonade. And as we look at life and look at where we are, here's a man that went from being a prisoner to the president of a country. I mean, we've lived through some incredible times and seen some incredible miracles take place. And things that we never thought would take place in our lifetime, including the election, the first time and the second time, of President Barack Obama. We are living in a time that we know anything's possible. And this is no time to play small. This is a time to trigger and to begin to stimulate our imagination and ask the question, how can I make a difference? What mark can I make with my life? What can I do to impact the lives of young people who have lost a sense of direction, who've lost a sense of self-respect, who are caught up in the bling-bling and don't feel like they owe anybody anything, who don't realize that somebody paid a price for them to be here, who don't understand the words of James Weldon Johnson, who said, "Stony the road we trod, bitter the testing rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet the steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We've come over a way that with tears has been watered. We've come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered." Somebody paid a price for the liberties that we enjoy. Somebody went to jail. Somebody had dogs sicked on them. And so when you look at yourself and think about and reflect on this man of this great spirit, we've got to look at ourselves. We've got to look at, as Michael Jackson talking about, the man in the mirror, and say, what am I going to do? What kind of legacy am I going to leave? And I believe that's incumbent upon all of us, because Nelson Mandela was not an exception. He was an example of what's possible for all of us when we find some place where we push our stake in the ground and say, here I stand, for I can do no other. Here's where I'm going to make my mark. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm reminded of a guy named Rasul. If you go to Miami and you go to Liberty City on 62nd Street, Rasul has a store there. Rasul was once incarcerated, but when he got out of jail, Rasul decided, right over there at 62nd Street and 7th Avenue, Rasul decided that he's going to make a mark with his life. He decided to help ex-offenders. He decided to become an entrepreneur. He decided that he's going to build a business legitimately and make a difference in the community. That in spite of what people might say about Liberty City and 48 hours and all the people that are killed in Liberty City and Overtown, that Rasul carved out a place in Liberty City that says, I'm going to make my mark right here and build a business from scratch. And that's what he's done. And he's expanded. And I'm saying to you, you've got some ideas in you. I'm saying to you, you got a vision in you. I'm saying to you, you've got gifts and talents. You were chosen for greatness. You had to win to be here. Your sperm won. And so as you look at yourself, ask yourself, what am I going to do differently? How am I going to show up in the world? What mark am I going to make? See, anybody can sit around and let somebody mark all over their bodies. But when you start talking about making a mark with your life, I talk about being actively engaged in this thing called life. When you decide there's something I want to do, and I've got to do it. I have got to do it. I remember my mother working on Miami Beach. I remember when she would walk around the house and say, Arthur's bothering me, that her ankles were swollen from arthritis. And I used to wonder, how could she decide that she was going to go to a job? She was sick, her ankles were swollen from arthritic condition, knees swollen, and she's going to go clean homes and be on her knees mopping and cleaning floors and cleaning toilets, and keeping other people's children and cooking for other families. And she went. If it was raining, she went. If she didn't feel good, she went. If she was sick, she went. Because she knew that there were 7 miles depending upon her. Even though she didn't give birth to us, but she made a commitment that we'll never go to sleep hungry and we'll always have clothes on our back and a roof over our heads. And then we got young guys who are dedicated and proud sperm donors who are making babies and say, well, I ain't got nothing. If I had it, I'll get it. Come on. I've lost a sense of pride and understanding what it means to be a man. We have young girls who leave their children at their mother's house as if they gave birth to them, to run the streets following some dude. We have people who have goals and dreams who are walking around trying to find a job in the entrepreneur's economy as opposed to looking at themselves as Moses had to do when he was crying out to God for help, and God said, what's in your hands? What is it you have going for you? What are your talents? What are your gifts? What's your passion? What's your dream? What is it you want to do? See, when we start thinking about the fact that we are made in the likeness and image of God, when we start thinking about the fact that we've been given authority and dominion over everything on the face of the earth, when we start thinking about the fact that there are moments in your life that either you define the moments or the moments to define you, and that we have the power, regardless of our situation, we have the power, regardless of the circumstances, we have the power to create a new chapter with our lives. And we're not victims unless we choose to be that. That greater is he that is in you than he that's in the world. It's a power. There's a source in you. That's why you're listening to me. You already know everything that I'm saying. I'm validating and confirming everything that's in you already. And I know what it's like to wonder, do I have what it takes? I know what it likes to have your car repossessed or your home foreclosed on. I know what it's like when I remember at Christmas time, and my kids would ask me, Dad, are we going to get anything for Christmas? And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't want to tell you. What's wrong, Daddy? Why are you crying? Well, I just heard that Santa Claus committed suicide. But Daddy, we just saw him on television. Well, those are reruns. He was trying to come here, but he didn't have enough presents to go around, and he killed himself. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, I should be ashamed of myself. And Kevin and Patrick, they started crying. They thought Santa Claus had committed suicide. But I remember the money. It seemed like every Christmas, right before Christmas, I ran out of money. I couldn't understand it. How can this happen every year? I was working in a job, and I used to get mad when I got my paycheck, when people should be excited, but I know they gave me the money, and I gave it to the people that I owed. And I got tired of that. I got tired of surviving. See, what it takes to live is different than what it takes to survive. And I decided that I was going to live a bigger life. I decided to learn. I started listening to motivational recordings. At that time, it was motivational cassettes, not CDs, cassettes. I started listening to them and reading motivational books to strengthen my mind, to expand my vision of myself, of what's possible. And I'm saying to those of you that's on this phone, you want to, at this time more than ever before, you want to build your mind up and build that inner man and woman in you. You want to read things that will inspire you, listen to things that will fire you up, because there's a lot of toxic energy out here. There's something wrong when more people in the land of opportunity, the United States of America, are committing suicide than people who die from traffic accidents. Something is wrong with that. When a man decides to kill his wife, kill his 12-year-old daughter, and kill himself in a garage because his wife can no longer pay the mortgage note, he's getting part-time work, he's behind on his bills, and he's going to kill himself? Come on. Come on. No. No. Willie Jolly had a point. A setback is a setup for a comeback. My favorite book is Right. Think it not strange that you face the fiery furnaces in this world. Viktor Frankl is right. Life is full of unavoidable suffering, but you don't have to give into it. You want to grow through it, not just go through it. You don't want to make stupid decisions because you're going through some tough times. No. You've got to have a mindset of resiliency and affirm to yourself, I'm going to get through this. No matter how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to get through this. Dr. Monk looked at me a few weeks ago in Columbus, Ohio, and said, this is as bad as it gets. I said to myself, what do I care about that? I'm a fighter. I'm not a punk. I'm not going to punk into this. I'm not a diagnosis or a prognosis. You're not your circumstances. You're not a foreclosure. You're not a bankruptcy. You're not a job. Whatever you have, you can create it again. 810 millionaires have been financially bankrupt. We all go through some stuff. And don't ask, why does that happen to me? Why not you? Who would you suggest? When I first heard that, I said, I got a lot of names. I got to give you some email addresses and some phone numbers. You know, I'm minimizing to my less. Everything you have, you're going through right now. The cancer is for your growth and development. I said, well, I wish God would give somebody else something to grow and develop from. I need him to pass this cup to somebody else. I've grown enough up in here, about to make me lose my mind. Up in here. I mean to tell you, this thing called life is a challenge. And we're still here. And we're still standing. And we still got a shot. And we can still make a difference. And I'm saying to you, as you look at yourself and look into the future, let us not just talk about the Honorable Nelson Mandela, but think in terms of what is it that I can do at this time with my life? What stories will be remembered about me? How will I use my talents, my abilities, my skills? What books will I write? What speeches will I give? What lives will be transformed because I live? Who will breathe easier? Who will feel better about themselves because they were in my presence? What is that that's in you, that wakes you up at night? What is that continues to nag you, that you have got to do it because it's you? That the people around you can't understand. Family members can't understand. But it's you. It's something that has been given to you, and you want your significant other to understand. But let me share something with you. You don't need anybody's approval. You've got to approve yourself. Because it's your dream. It's been given to you, and you've got to do it. And here's Here's what I think about when I think about Nelson Mandela's life, that all of us must think about when we're thinking about living a life of contribution, when we think about making a mark, when we think about how we're going to show up in the world. There's an S that we must think about that you very seldom hear when it comes to success. You know what it is? It's called sacrifice. Sacrifice. That's what I think about when I think about the Honorable Adiba, Nelson Mandela, sacrifice. What are you willing to give up? He gave up 26 years, not for himself, but for his country, for his people. He gave up 26 years to break the back of apartheid. What are you willing to give up? A friend of mine named Kerry, he was arrested for selling drugs. And he wrote his mother, said, Mama, I don't know if I can do 5 years in prison. I don't know if I can take it. I don't know if I can survive 5 years being locked up in solitary confinement. And his mother, to her credit, wrote him back, said, Son, I love you. If Nelson Mandela could do 26 years to free his people, you can do 5 years for getting people addicted to drugs. And she sent him some of my books and some other books and said, read and get your mind together. And he did. And he did those 5 years. Those 5 years didn't do him. And now Kerry is going around the world speaking to reduce the recidivism rate. Now Kerry is going around the world speaking to encourage people to live their dreams. Now Kerry is going around the world speaking and letting people know they have the power in them to live their dreams and be an asset to society rather than a liability. So as you think about Nelson Mandela's life, he gave up 26 years. He sacrificed 26 years. He wasn't with his wife. He wasn't with his children. 26 years. He was confined in prison. At any time, all he had to say was, I do not believe in the violent overthrow of apartheid. And he refused. My question to you, what are you willing to give up? My question to you, as you think about this man that we admire, that we honor, that we love, and that many words will be used to pay tribute to him. 3 presidents, President Bush, President Clinton, and President Obama will go to pay tribute to this man. What is it? What sacrifice are you willing to make the world a better place? Horace Mann said we should be ashamed to die until we've made some major contribution to humankind. I say that the reason that you're listening to my voice right now, there's something in you. There's a word in your heart. There's something in you that says, I'm supposed to make a difference. There's something in you. There's a gift. There's a talent. There's a word. There's something. There's a force for good in you. But the reasons you're still here, the world is going to be a better place. People are going to breathe easier. Lives will be transformed because you showed up, because of the sacrifice that you're willing to make, and how you're going to stand and represent yourself in the world. And because of that decision to make a sacrifice for that which you want to bring forth into this world, the world will be a better place because you were born. You have something special. You have greatness within you. Yes, let us pay tribute to a great man who the generations yet unborn will be talking about. and never forget, there's a Nelson Mandela in you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Powerful, powerful words. Powerful, powerful words. Thank you so much, Les. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here in Orlando. We've been working with some of our speakers here, Nina Kaufman and Rick, and Nancy's been here, and a few others. It's been very intimate, and these are speakers you're going to be hearing from who's got a message, and they've been willing to sacrifice and give up the time. Nina, she flew down from New York. People are from everywhere. And also Susan Stryden, she flew in from Sweden to learn how to begin to give a powerful keynote. And so we've had this part of the hotel here rocking at the Radisson. We've been firing it up in here, and they've been looking at me with their eyebrows raised that the old man still's got the juice. He's loose up in here. And I was in San Jose, California this past weekend, and let the record show we spoke to a group of ACN people. A gentleman by the name of Byron Nelson. We spoke to his organization, and we fired him up. But he's a bad brother. You're gonna love him, Anita and Stacy, when you see him. He is awesome. And he spoke first. Yeah, you know Byron?
I know Byron. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Byron spoke first. Men, we got to beat our chest and let me know that I can speak too. So he went out and lit it up first. And I said, oh, it's like that. Okay. Let me tell you something. I went up there and mopped that floor up.
I know you taught him a lesson or two. He learned that day.
Yes, I said, that'll learn you. Oh, no, he loved it. He's a wonderful brother. I'm just excited about working with him. He's going to be a part of our group, so we're going to be doing some great stuff together. I love his vision and dream. First time someone called me and said, I want to share with you a big dream that I have that we can do together with speaking that's going to transform lives. And I was so glad to hear that. It was very refreshing, and I'm excited about Barry Nelson and working with him. So I just want to thank everybody for being on the call. I want to thank the two of you for taking care of business. I'm excited about all the things that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be in Fort Lauderdale to work with some of the speakers there that are coming on and ready to take their voice to the next level. And, the beginning of the year, I'm taking 90 days off, 3 months, just to focus on me and strengthening myself from the inside out and taking my life to the next level and putting the little C behind me, never to come back up in my face again. I know I can't do it flying up and down on airplanes, so I'm asking people to hold me in prayer, see me being cancer-free, and see me beating this once again, hands down, kick in the butt, and stick a fork in it because it's done. Let the record show. But I will be on the call.
And
I'm going to do my call.
We got your back. We got your back. You know that.
And don't forget, we have our big 24 hours of motivation with your platinum speakers on January 1st. So you're going to be releasing some messages about that. So let the record show you're going to thrive.
Oh, yes, 24 hours. Tell people how they can be on the call. Tell them how they do that.
I will give them all the information when I make the announcements, but they have to stay tuned to your website, your Facebook page, and the Platinum page on Facebook. We're getting ready to launch all the information, 24 hours of motivation, January 1st, 2014. It's going down. Go hard or go home, baby. It's on.
That's what I'm talking about. Fantastic. Okay. Well, listen, thank y'all so much. Yes, you have a question to ask?
Yeah. Do you want to open up the call, try to open up the call, or you just want to just...
There's so much confusion on the call because so many people trying to get in at the same time. Here's what I like for people to do. Go to brown.les and spread the word about our positive motivational message, but also, if possible, post some comments on the call.
Yes.
Okay, do that. Let us know how you feel about the call. And I tell you, I feel, I was just in Johannesburg, South Africa 2 weeks ago. We were there at the time was President Nelson Mandela's birthday. But I feel there is another level. My very good friend, Dr. Mary Tompkins from the Universal Truth Center in Mamie passed. And I was in South Africa and couldn't get back to go to her funeral. This is a lady who took over the ministry that we started in Miami 32 years ago. And I miss her, but I know Tump, that's what we call her Tump. I can feel her presence, and I know she and Boo and my mama are looking on the other side, watching us. I do believe that I don't believe in death. I believe in transition, and that we transition to another dimension of expression. And I do believe this next work for me, and why I'm going to make this demonstration with a little C, it's a spiritual work. And I'm just so excited about the next chapter, and that 2014 is going to be the greatest year we've ever had. We had some incredible experiences with the Founders Church in Los Angeles when we spoke there this past week. We had great turnout, great synergy, some positive things happened. Hassan Thompson had an incredible event. It was his first event. And Makiva and Barbara, they were there, and other presenters. It was a great experience. And so I'm looking forward to 2014 to being our greatest year ever, but we're not through with 2013. There's still a lot of year left, to some money to be made, things to be done, and get ready to get a jump start in 2014. That's my story once again, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, thank you so much, Les. We appreciate you, and we will look forward to chatting with you on your Facebook page. So thank you
so much,
thank
Les. You.
All right, good
Take
night.
Care.
So for those of you that are
Take
listening,
care.
love you, Les. Thank you so much. We appreciate that powerful, powerful message. For those of you that are listening, we want to tell you how you can stay connected 7 days a week. Miss Stacy N.C. Grant is going to give you all of that information, so get your pen and paper out.
Thank you, Anita, my platinum sister, for all you do and who you are. This was definitely a powerful message tonight, and a reminder that every moment is precious. And I don't know about you, Anita, but I know I'm fired up and ready to go.
Oh, yes, I am.
All right, everyone, start your week off with Les Brown's baby girl, Ona Brown, with the Own Your Dreams with Ona Brown radio show every Sunday from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can join the conversation live at 404-355-8699, or you can listen at www.love860am.com or www.onabrown.com. That's ONABROWN.com. On Tuesdays, you can connect with Valerie N. Parker with Hot Soul Topics from the Soul every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can call the show live at 760-913-4115, or you can listen in on blogtalkradio.com/Soul Topics. And you can visit Arise by VNP. V as in Valerie, N as in Nancy, P as in Paul.com. AriseByVNP.com. On Tuesdays, the first and third Tuesday of every month, you can join Evelyn Polk, a.k.a. the Heart Lady, on blogtalkradio.com/Heart Talk with Miss E, the letter E. That's 6 p.m. Pacific Time, and the call-in number there is 424-675-8303. Or you can visit www.talktomisse.com. So that's talktomse.com. Then on Wednesdays, you have an opportunity to sign up for I Think I Need a Coach with me, Stacey N.C. Grant. Visit www.staceyNCGrant.com for more information. You can also get your business accelerated with none other than attorney Sean B. Arnold at businessbootcamponline.com, and that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And then you can join Legal Biz Cafe with Sean B. Arnold, and that is at 8 p.m. Wednesday nights Pacific Time on Blog Talk Radio. also join Legal Biz Cafe on Blog Talk Radio. You can also hear Trish Talks on www.intentionradio.com/Trish-Talks. You don't want to miss that every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Then on Thursday, Show Up for Your Life, free motivational call with the one and only Andy Enriquez. Every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dial in number 712-432-6100, PIN number 114431 #, or visit www.showupforyourlife.com. Then you have an opportunity for one-on-one coaching with our beautiful host, Anita Hicks. Register for your live coaching session with Anita Hicks and get weekly assignments, Q&A sessions, and a bonus webinar. But you have to log on to www.anitahicks.com to reserve your spot, or email Anita at anitahicks.com. Save the date right now for January 1st, 2014 for Thrive in 2014, Living Your Best Year Ever, featuring Les Brown's Platinum speakers and Mr. Brown himself with Che Brown and Trevor Ott. This is going to be an awesome 24 hours of motivation, live and direct to you. So stay tuned to Les's Facebook page and his website for further information. And as we add on more activity for this fourth quarter and finish out 2013 on top, we look forward to having you join us on this journey. God bless you all. God bless your dreams. Stacey N.C. Grant signing off. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you so much, Miss Stacey N.C. Grant, and thank you so much for all you do for keeping us connected. And callers, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us each week. You've heard the announcements, so now you can stay connected all week. Remember to tell someone about the call, and if you are interested in finding out how you can become a platinum speaker and become a part of the Les Brown's Platinum family and the thousands of voices, the 10,000 voices, you can email me, Anita Hicks. That's Anita, A-N-I-T-A, at AnitaHicks.com. So email me, or either go to my website, go to Facebook, send me a Facebook message. I'm out there on Facebook, but reach out to us. And also, we want to hear your comments. So remember to go to Facebook, Les Brown's Facebook page at brown.les, and let us know your thoughts. We appreciate you for joining us every week. And everyone have a wonderful Monday. And as always, I want to remind you to never, ever give up on your dreams, because the world awaits your light, your authentic gift. God bless you all, and God bless your dreams. This is Anita Hicks. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night, everyone. Good night, Stacey.
Good night, Anita. Love you, my platinum sister.
Love you. Good night, everyone.
Let me tell you something that's going to shake the way you view silence in relationships, especially when you're dealing with someone avoidant. When they go quiet, when they disappear, when they fall off the face of the earth, your first instinct is to think, they don't care. I don't matter. This is indifference. But here's the psychological truth nobody told you. For the avoidant, silence isn't disinterest. Silence is emotional warfare. And the battlefield is inside them. You see, most people think love is expressed through connection, words, actions, presence. But with an avoidant, love often shows up first as fear. And that fear doesn't mean the love isn't real. It means the love is so real, so potent, so destabilizing that their nervous system interprets it as a threat. That's how deeply wired this defense mechanism is. These are a person who has trained themselves to believe that intimacy equals danger, that getting close to someone equals losing themselves. So when they start catching feelings, it's not a joyful moment. It's a crisis. They're not pulling away because they don't feel something. They're pulling away because they feel everything. And they don't know how to survive it. Avoidants have a core fear of engulfment. That's psychological language for this haunting belief. If I let you in, I lose me. They spent years, maybe decades, building walls to keep themselves safe. They don't just fear your love, they fear what your love does to them. Because when they start needing you, thinking about you, craving your presence, it shakes their identity. It shatters their illusion of independence. And that illusion is their oxygen. And when love threatens it, they go into emotional suffocation mode. So what do? They retreat. They vanish. They shut down emotionally. not to hurt you, but to regain control over themselves. Silence becomes a survival strategy. And here's the kicker, they're not just going silent on you, they're going silent on themselves. They don't want to hear the voice inside saying you care. Because if they acknowledge that, then they have to risk, they have to feel, they have to change. And change terrifies them. This is where most people get confused. They assume that distance is a sign of apathy. But in avoidance psychology, distance is a coping mechanism for attachment overload. Think about that. The very presence of love, the very connection you're dying to offer, is what floods them. And so they run, not because they want less of you, but because they don't know how to hold the weight of what they're feeling. And let's be clear, this doesn't excuse emotional neglect. This doesn't mean you tolerate breadcrumbs or emotional manipulation. But what it does mean is that when an avoidant goes silent, you need to understand the why. Not for them, but for you. So you don't internalize their withdrawal as a reflection of your worth. Their silence isn't your failure, it's their inner chaos. In fact, silence is often the avoidance paradoxical love language. It's clumsy, it's backwards, it's broken, but it's real. Because in their world, avoiding you isn't forgetting you. It's them fighting to contain you in their mind without letting you destroy the emotional order they've clung to their whole life. So when they go quiet, don't just ask, why aren't they speaking? Ask instead, what are they trying not to feel? Because if silence is the shield, love is the sword that pierced through it. Let that sink in. So let's talk about something deceptively simple. Those small, seemingly meaningless moments where an avoidant pops up in your world. A random, hey, out of nowhere. A like on your story. Watching your content without ever engaging. Most people brush this off as nothing, an accident, a glitch in the matrix. But what if I told you those micro interactions are not accidental at all? What if they're actually emotional SOS signals sent from someone who's too scared to speak in full sentences? Here's the raw truths. When an avoidant checks in without connecting, they're not reaching out because they're ready to reattach. They're reaching out because they can't detach. That difference matters. They're trying to touch you without holding you. Stay close enough to not feel abandoned, but far enough to not feel engulfed. It's a survival tactic disguised as apathy. You've got to understand how emotional intimacy feels to someone who has built their identity around self-reliance. Connection feels like exposure. It feels like standing naked in the middle of a battlefield. No weapons, no armor, no exit plan. So instead of vulnerability, they substitute proximity. Instead of conversation, they offer presence from a distance. They stay close enough to know, but not close enough to risk anything real. This is the classic psychological push-pull dynamic. What you're seeing isn't confusion. It's conflict. A war between their need to connect and their reflex to protect. When an avoidant person sends that hey, they're not just testing the waters with you, they're testing themselves. Can I handle contact? Can I control my emotions this time? Can I be near her without losing myself again? It's emotional breadcrumbing, yes, but it's not always manipulative. Sometimes it's the only strategy they know. They've been conditioned, often from childhood, to believe that direct communication leads to pain, that open expression leads to rejection. So instead, they hide their feelings behind safe gestures. A comment on your post, an emoji, a short message at midnight. These aren't empty actions, these are emotional Morse code. I miss you, I think about you, but I can't say it because saying it makes it real. And real terrifies me. Here's where it gets deep. An avoidance core fear isn't just emotional closeness, it's emotional dependency. The moment they realize you affect their mood, their peace, their identity, the panic sets in. That's when they go dark. That's when the breadcrumbs show up. Because staying out of your life entirely is unbearable, but coming back in fully is overwhelming. So they choose a middle path. Unspoken connection, silent reach outs, ghostly presence, and most people misinterpret this as indifference. But indifference doesn't check your stories at 2 a.m. Indifference doesn't reappear after silence. Indifference doesn't maintain invisible ties. This isn't detachment. This is suppressed attachment. And it's a completely different emotional ecosystem. They love you, but they've buried it under layers of fear, pride, and survival instinct. What looks casual to you is calculated to them. What looks weak to you is strategic to them. They're trying to control love by controlling how they love. And the irony? They lose control every time they reach for you. So if they're checking in without connecting, know this, you're still in their emotional orbit. You haven't been forgotten. You've been compartmentalized. And that's not rejection. It's a sign of how dangerously deep their feelings run. The question isn't, are they thinking about you? The question is, can they handle what they feel when they do? Remember this, the avoidant doesn't reach out to reconnect, they reach out to remember. Have you ever noticed how an avoidant seems the most affectionate one moment, letting you peek behind the curtain of their guarded world, only to slam that curtain shut the instant real closeness is achieved? That sudden chill feels personal, like a slap of rejection. But the paradox is this, the retreat usually signals the precise moment love becomes undeniable for them. When an avoidant feels safe enough to relax their vigilance, even briefly, their nervous system reads that safety as loss of control. The experience of emotional security you crave is for them a flashing red warning light. Danger. True intimacy detected. Psychologically, this stems from what attachment researchers call a deactivating strategy. Think of it as an internal emergency brake wired into their relational circuitry. The moment their heart rate quickens in response to authentic connection, the brake slams down. They pick a fight over nothing, claim they need space, or dive into work with monastic obsession. These behaviors aren't meant to punish you. They're attempts to regulate an internal panic we rarely see on the surface. Philosophically, you could say they're protecting the sovereignty of the self. Love threatens the borders of the identity they worked years to fortify. Any sign that you might cross those borders by being consistently warm, accepting, or simply present activates an existential defense. If we exist, where do I end? Now here's the counterintuitive mystery. If you didn't matter, there would be no need for such defenses. An avoidant doesn't waste energy erecting walls against strangers. They only invest in armor where the stakes are highest, where attachment feels primal, where losing the other would feel like losing oxygen. Your closeness surfaces the very wounds that created their avoidance in the first place. Childhood moments where need met rejection, vulnerability met ridicule, dependency met abandonment. In the echo chamber of memory, the mind declares, never again! So when you step into the space those old echoes still occupy, the reflex is to shove you out before history repeats itself. But there's a deeper layer. Self-sabotage is also an unconscious test. They're asking, will you still choose me if I'm difficult, if I'm erratic, if I make intimacy labor instead of gift? They don't articulate it, but they're searching for proof that your care can survive their chaos. The tragedy is that the very test designed to confirm love often destroys the conditions where love thrives. Yet if you recognize the pattern, you can refuse the invitation to chaos without abandoning compassion. You hold your ground, calm, boundaried, present, showing them what constancy looks like without collapsing their autonomy. Notice the paradox. The closer you get, the more they pull back, and the pullback itself is evidence you are getting closer. That means your presence is touching nerves no one else has reached. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's confusing, but understanding transforms pain into information. Now you can decode their withdrawal. My nearness just triggered their emergency system. This is proof of depth, not lack. With that lens, you stop chasing and start observing. You let the brake engage without internalizing the squeal. You give space without disappearing. You model regulated intimacy, proximity without pressure. In that regulated space, they can slowly learn that staying doesn't equal drowning. None of this suggests tolerating chronic disrespect. Boundaries are the oxygen mask you both need. But when the first cold front blows in after a heat wave of connection, pause before you interpret it as final winter. Remember that what feels like rejection is often the nervous system's awkward declaration, I feel too much. If you can meet that declaration with steady self-respect, you give the relationship its only real chance to evolve beyond the reflex of retreat. So the next time they push you away right after opening up, see it for what it is, evidence that love has crossed the threshold of their defenses and they're scrambling to survive. Leave them wondering how you stayed calm in the storm and watch how curiosity begins to replace fear. Let me draw back the curtain on one of the most misunderstood behaviors in an avoidant partner. The illusion of forgetfulness. They act as if your birthday slipped their mind, as if they can't recall the song that played on your first road trip, as if your favorite coffee order was never registered. But behind that poker face is a mind running a private archive of astonishing precision. An avoidant survival system relies on pattern recognition, tracking conditions, moods, micro-expressions, because control is their primary currency. So while they give you a casual shrug, their subconscious is stitching together a high-resolution map of you. The way you wrinkle your nose when you disagree, the exact minute you stop texting back, the color you wore the day they first felt safe. Neurologically, this makes sense. Hypervigilance is common in attachment wounds. The nervous system, primed for abandonment, scans for threat the way radar scans for storms. Every detail becomes data. How fast did she reply? Did his tone shift when I mentioned my past? What was the look in her eyes when I said I was busy? On the surface, cool, detached. Underneath, full sensory recording in 4K. That's why months later they can quote something you said offhand or suddenly reference a minor goal you mentioned once at 3 a.m. They never forgot. They filed it under critical intelligence. Philosophically, memory is how we grant meaning to experience. To forget is to deprioritize. To remember is to honor. An avoidance covert remembrance reveals what they won't admit. You occupy priority real estate in their inner world. But acknowledging that openly would violate their prime directive, self-protection through emotional minimalism. So they disguise memory as coincidence. Oh, I just happened to pass that bakery you love and grabbed your favorite pastry. Nonsense! They planned that detour. The gesture is their encrypted confession. I know you. I study you. You matter more than I can handle. Of selective amnesia also serves a defensive function. If they admit they remember, they risk being accountable for caring. Caring invites obligation, and obligation threatens autonomy. Better to pretend ignorance than to risk the vulnerability of responsibility. But watch their actions in crisis. The second you withdraw, they notice instantly. They don't need reminders. Their nervous system hits the alarm, cataloging the date, the hour, the digital breadcrumb, the signal to your distance. Why? Because your absence jeopardizes the equilibrium they've engineered. You think they're indifferent, but inside they're scrambling. Why did she go quiet on May 4 at 11:07 p.m.? What did I miss? Understanding this helps you set boundaries without taking their facade at face value. When they feign ignorance, don't argue, simply note the incongruence. Hold your standard. I know you remember. When you're ready to be honest about that, we can talk. You neither shame them nor collude with the charade. That stance, steady, respectful, but unyielding, invites them into a different relational ethic, one where memory is shared instead of hidden. Remember, the goal isn't to extract constant proof of their recollection. It's to recognize that their memory already proves the depth of their attachment. Your task is to live by your own truth, not beg for theirs. When you stop arguing over whether they remember, you free yourself to observe how they use that memory to connect or to control, to comfort or to evade. From there, you decide what you'll allow. So the next time they act like the past evaporated, trust what you've seen. Their silence is filled with details, their eyes are photographic lenses, and their heart, though barricaded, is recording every moment you share. And here's the takeaway that can change the way you show up. Their hidden memory of you is undeniable evidence of impact. Use that knowledge to stand tall, not to chase. Let's go deeper into the part most people miss, the tension that builds in an avoidant person when they watch you rise. Not when you beg, not when you chase, but when you finally turn your energy inward. When you stop performing for their approval, stop orbiting around their silence, and start expanding in your own life. That is the moment their emotional system short circuits. See, most people assume avoidance only value distance, but what actually destabilizes them is not distance, it's your independence without resentment. It's when you detach with dignity, not drama. That's when the game they've subconsciously played loses its structure. You're not punishing them. You're just evolving beyond their emotional reach. And here's the irony. The more emotionally self-contained you become, the more they feel the weight of what they're losing. Not because they're suddenly more available, but because for the first time, they're confronted by something that terrifies them more than closeness. Irrelevance. Understand this. Avoidants aren't afraid of being alone. They're afraid of no longer mattering. You becoming emotionally self-sufficient challenges their internal narrative that says, I'm safest when I don't need or get too close to anyone. When you stop needing them, they can't place themselves in the hero or the escape role anymore. You've dismantled the entire psychological scaffolding they built their identity on. This shift in dynamic hits them hard because philosophically it confronts their ego structure. The avoidant ego thrives on control of space, of pace, of perception. They were comfortable when you were anxious, seeking, always knocking on a door they could choose to open or ignore. But now, you're not at the door, you've walked into a different room entirely. That's when they start doing things that contradict everything they've said. A vague message, a memory sent your way, a question that doesn't need to be asked, except it does. Because it's not about the answer. It's about checking the temperature. Are they still on your mind? Do they still affect you? The more grounded you become, the more transparent their emotional confusion becomes. They'll try to reassert old roles, initiate small dramas, or act as if nothing changed, but it did. You did. And that unsettles them because they didn't expect you to grow without their permission. But independence isn't rebellion, it's reality. You rising is not an act of revenge, it's a return to your center. And here's where you gain your greatest power. When you grow with love, not spite. When your silence isn't punishment, it's peace. When your transformation isn't a strategy, it's truth. That's when the avoidant begins to feel the gravitational shift. Not because you pushed them, but because you pulled your energy back. And when they feel that absence, not the loud absence of anger, but the silent absence of emotional dependency, it echoes louder than anything you could have said. This is where they begin to reflect, not in the heat of the fight, but in the quiet after. When your absence is no longer reactive, but radiant. You've moved forward, and now their inner world has to recalibrate. And whether they return or not, something has shifted forever. They now know you are not waiting, you are becoming. So the next time you think they're unaffected by your glow up, your boundaries, your new silence, think again. Avoidants don't chase validation, but they do feel the tremble when someone they care for no longer orbits their fear. They may not say it, but deep down they're asking, how did she outgrow my silence? How did she heal the thing I still run from? And here's what I want you to hold on to. Your healing doesn't just free you, it forces them to confront the very thing they've been avoiding all along, themselves. There's something strangely telling about how an avoidant handles your emotional expression, especially the raw kind, the kind that isn't rehearsed, filtered, or perfectly timed. The moment you cry in front of them, not out of manipulation, but truth, they don't rush to comfort you. In fact, they may go quiet, freeze, or even walk out. And in that instant, most people make a devastating mistake. They assume their emotions were too much, that they scared love away. But what if I told you that moment, that reaction is not rejection, it's reverence wrapped in fear. See, avoidants are often raised in emotional deserts, environments where vulnerability was dangerous, where feelings meant weakness or chaos, or worse, became weapons used against them. So when you break down in front of them, they're not disgusted, they're disoriented. You just stepped into sacred territory and they don't have the tools to navigate it. Emotions for them aren't just feelings, they're alarm. And tears, that's a fire they don't know how to put out. But here's the twist most never see. If they didn't care, they wouldn't freeze. Indifference has no reaction. If you were just another person, your pain wouldn't rattle them. But it does. Why? Because your vulnerability threatens the wall they built their survival on. It says, I trust you enough to fall apart here. And to someone who has lived in emotional isolation, that trust feels both holy and terrifying. There's a philosophical irony here. What you see as weakness, crying, cracking open, revealing your truth, is actually an act of strength most avoidants admire, but don't know how to mirror. They don't reject your depth because it's repulsive. They pull away because it exposes how unpracticed they are in emotional presence. You just showed them a version of love they've never mastered. You became the mirror reflecting everything they've avoided within themselves. This is where you must rise above the impulse to retreat or shrink. And don't apologize for your heart. Don't rush to fix their discomfort. You are not the problem. You are the invitation. An invitation for them to grow beyond avoidance, to witness what emotional safety actually looks like, even if it scares them. Let your presence remain steady. Let your softness remain sovereign. You are not melting down. You are modeling. You are showing them the path out of emotional exile. What happens next is rarely immediate. They might pull away, busy themselves, pretend like nothing happened. That's a trauma reflex, not proof of your unworthiness. In silence, they will replay your tears like a riddle they can't solve. They'll remember the tremble in your voice, the sincerity in your words, the fact that you didn't scream, you simply felt. And over time, that memory becomes more powerful than any perfect moment you shared because it wasn't curated, it was real. You cannot force them to meet you there. That's not your job. But you can refuse to betray yourself just to soothe their emotional illiteracy. Your role isn't to make your feelings more palatable, it's to honor them with clarity and courage. Whether they grow with you or walk away, your authenticity is never wasted. It either deepens the connection or reveals where the connection ends. So the next time your vulnerability is met with silence, remember this: your emotions didn't scare them, they shook something awake. And what they do with that awakening, that's not your burden. That's their becoming.
What if I told you that one sentence could reprogram your entire identity? Not your to-do list, not your goals, not your vision board, but your identity. Because here's the truth no one told you. You don't get what you want. You get who you are. And who you are is coded, hardwired, sculpted by what you repeat and what you emotionally feel when you repeat it. In this video, I'm going to rip the mask off your old programming and show you how one sentence, 10 minutes a day, and raw emotional repetition can rebuild your identity, redirect your destiny, and quite literally recode your reality. So listen close. This isn't fluff. This is warfare for your future. I Command It programs identity, not just intention. When you speak the words, I command it, you are doing far more than uttering a phrase. You are engaging the most powerful mechanism available to you, the power to shift identity at the subconscious level. This is not a motivational gimmick. It is not a trick to feel better. It is a neurological trigger, a command to the nervous system, the brain, the spirit, to reorient and reprogram. It's not about the hope that something will happen. It's about the decision that it must. And when that decision is spoken aloud with certainty, you begin to access the ultimate force, your identity. Most people go through life setting goals, listing intentions, even visualizing dreams. They do the morning routines, write the affirmations, and chase the vision boards, but they're missing one thing. They haven't changed the identity behind the actions. That's why they sabotage. That's why they start and stop, because you can't outperform the identity you believe you are. You can write, I want to be rich, but if your identity says, I'm not worthy of wealth, your actions will betray your goals. You can say, I want to get fit, but if your identity whispers, I've always been lazy, your discipline will crumble under pressure. Identity is the thermostat of your life. It doesn't matter what temperature you want, if your internal setting keeps dragging you back to where you've always been. And this is why I command it is not just a phrase, it's an internal override. When said with certainty and consistency, it tells your mind, we're not asking anymore, we're becoming. It doesn't leave room for doubt. You're no longer planting seeds of desire, you're sending instructions. You're programming the software, you're flipping the switch. Think of your brain as a computer, one of the most advanced ever created. Now imagine you've been typing in wishful commands, maybe, hopefully, someday. Those don't execute anything. But a command, a direct line of code with absolute clarity, I command discipline, I command strength, I command power, that reprograms the system. The subconscious doesn't resist a command, it responds to it. It aligns with it. The power behind I command it is that it bypasses the indecisive, hesitant part of your brain and taps into your deepest neurological programming, the part that controls behavior, emotional response, and pattern recognition. The subconscious mind doesn't differentiate between truth and repetition. It believes what it hears often. So when you begin your day with I command it, you aren't simply setting an intention. You are day by day building a new identity through linguistic force and embodied action. Let's go deeper. Identity isn't something you're born with, it's something you install. It's not fixed, it's flexible, and it gets shaped through experiences, feedback, and most importantly, language. The most powerful way to accelerate the shift from who you are to who you want to become is to shift your self-diagram. Because language is identity. The words you speak become the beliefs you carry, and the beliefs you carry determine the behaviors you repeat. I command it is assertive. It is final. It leaves no room for negotiation with fear, doubt, or distraction. It confronts the unconscious stories that say, I can't, I'm not ready, I'm too broken, and replaces them with identity-rich declarations. When you say, I command focus, your brain stops scanning for excuses and begins scanning for strategies. When you say, I command progress, your emotions stop seeking comfort and start leaning toward challenge. You begin to embody a different energy, one that doesn't just want more but expects more. There's a biological transformation that follows this. Words, especially those said with high emotion, change your physiology. They alter your posture, your breathing, your state. State creates action. Action reinforces belief, and belief rewires identity. So the more you declare I command it and back it with movement, the faster you reshape your internal blueprint. We've all been programmed. Whether you realize it or not, your current identity was not self-selected. It was assembled. From childhood, you've been absorbing signals from family, from school, from trauma, from social conditioning. You were told what you are: smart, slow, loud, weak, average, angry, anxious, awkward, talented. Those labels got repeated so often, you believe them. And belief is powerful. It filters every decision. But here's the key. You can override old programming with new commands, not by whispering, maybe someday I'll change, but by rising up and saying, I command my shift. That moment, that declaration tells your subconscious, we're not living by default anymore. We are now operating by design. Command language is how leaders communicate. It's how athletes prep. It's how elite performers align their internal and external reality. Before stepping into the arena of life, they prime their identity, not by chance, but by choice. They don't leave their mindset to the weather, they dictate their state before their state dictates them. And I command it is a tool to take that authority. You've got to understand this. The nervous system responds to clarity. The body doesn't follow fog. But when you declare with force what you are, the system aligns. You begin to act like the version of you that already owns the result. You eat differently. You walk taller. You say no to distraction. You write the plan. You follow through, not because the task changed, but because you did. Because the identity driving the action leveled up. And here's where the magic happens. When your identity shifts, your standards rise. What used to be good enough becomes unacceptable. What used to be scary becomes fuel. The old stories get overwritten, not because they disappear, but because you're no longer obeying them. You've installed a new voice, and that voice commands. Now this takes repetition. You can't say it once and expect change. You've got decades of mental programming to confront. But that's the opportunity. That's the power. You get to rebuild. One command at a time. One morning at a time. One declaration, spoken with fire, lived with action, until it becomes who you are. Imagine waking up tomorrow and instead of saying, ugh, I'm tired, you say, I command energy. I command purpose. I command this day to bend in my favor. That's not fantasy. That's building a mental environment where only growth can survive. It's setting the tone before the noise of the world sets it for you. Most people live in reaction. They wait for the world to give them permission to rise. But those who build extraordinary lives don't wait. They command. And that command creates momentum. You speak it, you move with it, you write it down, you visualize it, you let it saturate your habits, your schedule, your body, your soul. That's how you reinforce the shift. That's how you install the upgrade. Let me be clear. This is not about arrogance. This is about ownership. This is not pretending you're invincible. It's recognizing you've been passive for too long. That the old language, I'll try, we'll see, maybe later, has kept you small. I command it is not about controlling the world. It's about commanding yourself, your focus, your behavior, your choices. And when you do that consistently, deliberately, relentlessly, you don't just change your mornings, you change your identity. And when your identity changes, your life follows. Your first 10 minutes dictate your next 10 years. There is a sacred window of time each morning when your life is most malleable, most programmable, and most exposed to influence. Yet this moment is also the most abused, the most neglected, the most underestimated. Your first 10 minutes after waking up are not just a transition from sleep to consciousness. They are the first brushstroke on the canvas of your day. And what most people don't realize is this: that brushstroke carries through the entire painting. Because in those first 10 minutes, you set your rhythm. You choose your frequency. You define your emotional chemistry. And that choice echoes forward, not just for the rest of the day, but for years to come. People talk about the importance of mornings like it's just a productivity hack. But this isn't about getting up early for the sake of early. It's not about ticking off habits for Instagram aesthetics. This is about leadership. Self-leadership. The kind that either defines your destiny or slowly decays it. Those 10 minutes, they reveal everything. Your discipline, your focus, your identity, your values, they all show up the moment you open your eyes and decide, do I lead today or do I follow? Do I respond with power or do I drift with passivity? The reason your first 10 minutes are so powerful is because of what's happening inside your brain. When you wake up, your mind is in a transitional state between theta and alpha brainwaves, what neuroscientists call the most programmable state of consciousness. In this window, your subconscious is still wide open. Your guard is down. Your habitual thoughts are forming. What you say to yourself, what you think about, what you focus on, it all gets imprinted deeper and faster than at any other point in the day. In that moment, you're not just waking up, you're coding. You're writing the program that will either guide you to growth or keep you repeating the same cycles. Now here's the truth most people ignore. If you don't intentionally own those first 10 minutes, the world will. The outside world is always ready to flood your system. Emails, messages, headlines, noise, fear, distractions. If the first voice you hear is the world's, then your day becomes a reaction, a response, a defense. You're no longer in command, you're in survival mode. And when you repeat that process over days, months, years, what happens? You build a life based on reaction instead of creation. You train your nervous system to expect chaos instead of clarity. And one day you wake up, not just overwhelmed by the day, but unsure of who you've become. But if you take those 10 minutes and treat them as sacred, as strategy, you shift everything. You move from reacting to leading. You move from being a follower of circumstances to becoming a commander of your course. That's why the first 10 minutes of your day are not about the time, they're about the tone. And the tone you choose programs your identity and directs your behaviors. Your identity drives your standards. Your standards shape your actions. And your actions determine your future. That's the ripple, that's the chain reaction, which means the tiny decisions you make in that small window are not small at all. They are foundational Most people don't connect the dots. They think it's just a few minutes, and they give that time away freely, checking the news, checking notifications, checking out a presence. But nothing in life is neutral. Everything you do is either reinforcing who you were or constructing who you are becoming. Those 10 minutes are not just mental space. They are votes for your future self. They are investments in your identity. Every time you begin the day with intention, you are casting a vote for the future you want. Every time you begin with distraction, you are voting for more drift. That's why high achievers, performers, and leaders don't leave their mornings to chance. They script them. They ritualize them. They protect them like sacred ground. Because they understand this: the way you begin is the way you become. It's not about having perfect mornings. It's about consistent intention, clarity, energy, vision. These are not luxuries. They are fuel. And the way to access them is through discipline in the moments where most people are drifting. Let's be brutally honest. How do most people wake up? They reach for their phone before they've even said good morning to themselves. They scroll, they consume, they start comparing, they start reacting. In less than 10 minutes, their mind has already been hijacked by someone else's agenda. Their nervous system is flooded with noise. Their attention has been fragmented. And what happens after that? They try to get back control, but it's too late. The day already has them. They're now behind, rushing, catching up. Their energy is chaotic, their mood is fragile, their decisions are reactive, and their goals take a back seat. But there is another way. And it begins with the decision to own the first 10 minutes of your day like your life depends on it, because it does. It begins by creating a space before the world invades. A space to align, to clarify, to prepare. What does that look like? It's not complicated, it's intentional. You wake up, and instead of reaching for the phone, you reach inward. You breathe deeply, you sit in stillness. You ask the question, who do I need to be today to honor the life I am building? You speak declarations that anchor your identity. You write down your thoughts. You visualize the one win that will move your mission forward. You move your body to awaken energy. You command your focus before anything else tries to. Why does this matter so much? Because over time, your life is not shaped by what you do occasionally. It's shaped by what you do first. What you do when no one's watching. What you do before the world gets a say. The first 10 minutes are your leadership window. It's where you declare, this is who I am, this is what matters, this is the direction I choose. And when you repeat that ritual with commitment, it compounds. One day of power becomes 2, then a week, then a month, until one day you look back and realize you are no longer reacting to life, you are directing it. And let's talk about identity, because that's what this is really about. It's not about hacks or productivity systems, it's about who you are becoming. When you wake up and choose power, you remind yourself that you are not a victim of the world. You are a force in it. When you rise with clarity, you remind your brain that purpose is greater than pressure. You remind your brain that purpose is greater than pressure. When you start your day with alignment, you build resilience for everything that comes after. You are not just checking a box. You are forging a mindset. You are practicing presence. You are constructing a character that can carry the weight of your dream. Too many people wait for the world to affirm their power, but the world will not do that. You have to build it within. You have to declare it in silence, before the noise, before the emails, before the expectations. That's what the first 10 minutes are for. To define your direction before the day tells you who to be. And when you do that over and over again, the compound effect is staggering. Your confidence builds, your habits solidify, your results multiply. Not because the days are perfect, but because the direction is clear. Every storm becomes easier to weather when you wake up already anchored. This isn't theory. This is performance science. Athletes use this. Executives use this. Warriors, leaders, visionaries. Anyone who's operating at a high level knows that if you lose the morning, you fight uphill for the rest of the day. They understand that the brain is shaped by patterns. That intention becomes identity when repeated under pressure. And the first 10 minutes are the ultimate training ground. Now, some people will say, but I'm not a morning person. And to that I say, you are what you practice. You are what you repeat. Morning isn't a personality trait. It's a strategy. It's a decision. You don't have to love it at first. You just have to, you lead it. And eventually you'll realize it's not about being a morning person. It's about being a purpose-driven person who refuses to start their day in defeat. So here's the truth. Your first 10 minutes are not just about the day ahead. They're about the decade ahead. Because when you take those 10 minutes seriously, when you own them, protect them, direct them, you start building a life that reflects your highest value. You start carving out a future that is not reactionary but revolutionary. Not ordinary, but intentional. Not rushed, but aligned. That is how you turn days into momentum and momentum into a legacy. Most people won't do it. They'll keep waking up into the chaos, thinking their day is random, their direction unclear, their emotions out of control. But that's not you. You're here because you know better. And so is the world. And with a little practice and prayer and a partner like you, make it so much easier. But no one can do it for you. Most people won't do it. They're too busy. Because you know that the world doesn't shape you. You shape you. And that shaping begins the moment you open your eyes. Every single morning you are standing at a crossroads, drift or design, distraction or direction, reaction or rise. And that choice doesn't take an hour. It takes 10 minutes. Just 10. The most powerful 10 minutes of your entire life. Repetition with emotion rewires reality. Human beings are not shaped by information alone. They are shaped by emotion. What you feel, not just what you know, carves deep grooves in your neurology. And when that emotion is paired with repetition, when it is experienced again and again in a specific direction, it begins to rewire how you see the world, how you respond to it, and ultimately how you define yourself within it. Repetition on its own builds familiarity. Emotion on its own creates intensity. But when you combine both, repetition with emotion, you generate transformation. You go beyond knowledge. You enter the realm of identity programming. You begin to rewire reality. Most people misunderstand how change actually happens. They think it's about logic. They think if they just read enough books, take enough notes, or write enough goals, they'll shift. But they miss the core ingredient. The nervous system doesn't change because of logic. It changes because of experience. You don't remember facts, you remember feelings. You don't replay data, you replay moments that were emotionally charged. That's how your brain prioritizes what matters, by measuring the emotional impact of a moment and encoding it more deeply. Repetition with emotion becomes a tool for consciously constructing those moments. It becomes a strategy for conditioning new patterns into your physiology. When you repeat a phrase, a movement, a visualization, or a behavior with intensity, when your voice, your body, and your breath match that repetition, you are literally carving new neural pathways. You are giving your brain a reason to let go of old programs and adopt new ones. This isn't motivation, this is neuroscience. You're using the language of the body emotion to speak directly to the part of the brain responsible for identity, behavior, and long-term memory, the limbic system. That's why affirmations don't work for most people. They say the words, but they don't feel them. They repeat the statement, but there's no charge, no emotional involvement. The nervous system doesn't register a flat affirmation. It doesn't care about words that are mumbled or whispered without belief. But say something with power. Stand tall, breathe deeply, ignite your voice, and repeat it again and again, and suddenly your subconscious is listening. Suddenly your body begins to align. That's the difference. That's the gateway from information to transformation. Let's look at the structure of belief. Every belief you hold was once a thought, repeated with enough emotional weight that it embedded itself into your identity. Whether positive or negative, it followed the same process. Someone told you something. Maybe you heard it once, maybe you heard it 1,000 times, but at some point it meant something. It struck you. You felt it, and you believed it. Then you started repeating it, either out loud or silently. And with each repetition, it became more real. That's how a child starts to believe, I'm not good enough, or I don't belong, or I'm always going to struggle. Not because they were born with that thought, but because it was repeated with emotion until it rewired their view of self. But that process also works in reverse. You can use it to uninstall old beliefs and install new ones. You can take the same mechanism that wired limitation into your system and use it to wire power. You start with language. Not just any language, but emotionally charged language. Words that cut through the noise. Words that strike the nervous system. Words that feel like a command. Then you repeat those words, not once, not occasionally, but daily, rhythmically, forcefully. You do it while moving your body. You do it while visualizing your future. You do it while breathing with intensity. That's how you make the nervous system listen. That's how you change what's automatic. Because make no mistake, your life is a reflection of what's automatic. You don't live by what you want. You live by what you've rehearsed. Your reactions, your habits, your emotional triggers, they are all products of repetition. That's why change feels hard. You're not just making a decision. You're confronting thousands of repetitions that came before. And if you want to overwrite those, you have to out-remeet them. You have to introduce a higher frequency of thought, paired with a higher level of emotional engagement. Living with anger, that's how new patterns take root. Athletes do this instinctively. Before every performance, they rehearse not just the motion, but the emotion. They visualize the game-winning shot, not just to see it, but to feel it. Over and over again. They practice with intensity because they know that when the pressure hits, the body will default to what's been repeated most. If fear has been rehearsed, fear will win. But if power has been rehearsed, if victory has been rehearsed, then confidence takes over. And that same principle applies in life. When you rehearse strength, more often than weakness, strength becomes the default. When you rehearse faith, more often than doubt, faith becomes automatic. It's not just about the words you speak, it's about how you speak them. If you say, I am powerful, in a bored, quiet voice, your system won't shift. But say it with fire, with certainty, with breath in your lungs and presence in your body. Say it while standing, while moving, while locking eyes with yourself in the mirror, and something changes, something clicks. Your voice becomes a trigger. Your body becomes a conductor. And the repetition becomes more than mental, it becomes cellular. Emotion is the glue that binds the repetition to your nervous system. Without it, repetition is weak. With it, repetition becomes unshakable. That's how trauma gets encoded, because a moment of intense emotion gets replayed so often it becomes a part of the identity. But that's also how breakthroughs happen. When you feel something deeply, when you decide with emotion, when you reinforce that decision with relentless repetition, you begin to carve a new path through the jungle of your old patterns. And every repetition makes that path clearer. Easier to walk, easier to trust. Rewiring reality doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing which version of reality you want to reinforce. There are always multiple interpretations of the same moment. Repetition with emotion gives you the ability to reinforce the one that empowers you. If you've lived most of your life repeating, "I'm not enough," you can just as easily start repeating, "I am built for this." If your pattern has been, "I always fail," you can install, "I always rise." But it won't stick the first time, or the fifth, or the 10th. It takes saturation. It takes consistency. It takes emotional intensity applied again and again until the new belief feels more familiar than the old one. You are not changing reality itself, you are changing your lens. You are changing the internal code that decides what you notice, what you believe, and what you expect. That shift alone alters your entire experience of the world. A person who repeats with emotion, "Opportunities are everywhere," will begin to see opportunities others miss. A person who repeats, "I create breakthroughs," will start taking actions others fear. This isn't magic, it's mechanics. It's how the brain filters information. It pays attention to what's been rehearsed with emotion. It deletes what doesn't match that pattern. So the real question is, what are you rehearsing? What have you been repeating? What phrases do you whisper to yourself when no one's listening? What emotional states do you practice daily? Resentment or gratitude? Fear or courage? Scarcity or certainty? Because whatever you rehearse the most becomes your truth, and the more you repeat it with feeling, the more real it becomes. Not just in your mind, but in your behaviors, your results, your relationships, and your future. This is why emotional mastery is so critical. If you can generate elevated emotion on command, joy, power, passion, faith, you now have a weapon that can supercharge your repetition. You're no longer a passive participant in your conditioning. You become the architect. You start designing the beliefs you want instead of inheriting the ones you were given. And every time you repeat those beliefs with emotion, you reinforce the version of yourself that can live them out. People spend years trying to change their circumstances without realizing their circumstances are just reflections of their internal repetitions. If you want to change your outer world, you have to start by changing your inner soundtrack. And not just once, but daily, with fire, with emotion, with the kind of certainty that tells your system, this is the new standard. And then you hold that line. You repeat it in the car, in the shower, on the run, in the mirror. You speak it until you believe it. You believe it until you embody it. You embody it until your reality reflects it. You're not just learning something new, you're becoming someone new. And that process requires emotional engagement. The brain rewires faster when you're emotionally involved. It listens more closely. It adapts more rapidly. That's why pain creates change, but so does purpose. You don't have to suffer to rewire. You just have to care enough, feel enough, commit enough, and repeat with that feeling until the old patterns no longer make sense. The good news? You don't need to change everything at once. You just need one phrase, one truth, one vision. Repeat it daily with emotion until it becomes who you are. And once it's part of you, the rest aligns. Because the nervous system doesn't just respond to effort. It responds to emotional frequency. Match that frequency. Repeat it relentlessly, and reality bends. You don't need 17 steps. You don't need another 3-hour seminar. You need a moment of decision. Because here's what we uncovered today. First, "I command it" isn't a phrase. It's a line in the sand. When you say it with conviction, you're not hoping anymore, you're becoming. It programs identity. It overrides uncertainty. You're not asking for change, you're commanding it. Second, your first 10 minutes, they aren't minutes. They're multipliers. They dictate not just your mood, but your motion. Your next 10 years are being rehearsed every morning before your feet even hit the ground. Lead your day or be led by it. Third, repetition with emotion, That's the rewiring tool of the gods. Logic won't save you. Passion will. Emotion plus repetition is how belief becomes biology. It's how your identity gets sculpted. You are what you rehearse, not what you remember. Everything you desire, your next chapter, your next level, your future, it doesn't start with effort. It starts with a decision. And that decision gets installed with repetition, activated in the first 10 minutes of the day and cemented by the way you speak to yourself with emotion. So stop waiting. You're not late. You're right on time. Because today, you just got the key. If this hits you deep, then don't scroll. Command it. Drop I command it in the comments. Smash the like. Share this with someone still asleep. And subscribe, because this channel is your new identity gym. Let's go. This isn't motivation. This is programming.